Ladies and gentlemen, the following segment of the podcast is presented exclusively by the Heritage Foundation. For 52 years, Heritage has fought tirelessly for America's founding principles and advancing conservative public policies. Much more than a think tank, Heritage is a conservative policy powerhouse, fighting for the everyday American to advance common sense policies and dismantle the D.C. bureaucracy. Our founding fathers gave us an extraordinary system of government, and the Heritage Foundation is dedicated to defending the heritage and carrying on their legacy for future generations. So get involved by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda by visiting heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin. Here, our number 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I thought I'd start the program this evening with President Ronald Reagan in his State of the Union address in January 1982. In January 1982. Man, we have a lot to cover tonight, all of it compelling, I think. Let's take a listen. Cut one, go.
We must cut out more non-essential government spending and root out more waste, and we will continue our efforts to reduce the number of employees in the federal workforce by 75,000. The budget plan I submit to you on February 8th will realize major savings by dismantling the Departments of Energy and Education and by eliminating ineffective subsidies for business. We will continue to redirect our resources to our two highest budget priorities: a strong national defense to keep America free and at peace, and a reliable safety net of social programs for those who have contributed and those who are in need. Contrary to some of the wild charges you may have heard, this administration has not and will not turn its back on America's elderly or America's poor.
Cut two, go.
Today, we face the absurd situation of a federal budget with 3/4 of its expenditures routinely referred to as uncontrollable, and a large part of this goes to entitlement programs. Committee after committee of this Congress has heard witness after witness describe many of these programs as poorly administered and ripe with waste and fraud. Virtually every American who shops in a local supermarket is aware of the daily abuses that take place in the food stamp program, which has grown by 16,000% in the last 15 years. Another example is Medicare and Medicaid, programs with worthy goals, but whose costs have increased from $11.2 billion to almost $60 billion, more than 5 times as much in just 10 years. Waste and fraud are serious problems. Back in 1980, federal investigators testified before one of your committees that corruption has permeated virtually every area of the Medicare and Medicaid health care industry. One official said many of the people who were cheating the system were very confident that nothing was going to happen to them. Well, something is going to happen. Not only the taxpayers are defrauded, the people with real dependency on these programs are deprived of what they need because available resources are going not to the needy, but to the greedy. The time has come to control the uncontrollable.
Mm-hmm. And so when you hear Democrats, liberals, the media say, it's not what Musk is doing, it's the way he's doing it, they largely thwarted Reagan. Trump knows that. And so Trump's going about it a different way. What they really mean when they say, I just wish they would follow the rules and go through Congress and so forth and so on, what they mean is put it through the grinder and kill it. I hope everybody understands how important Donald Trump and Elon Musk are. I hope everybody understands that they truly are trying to save the country. I hope everybody understands that we may not get another shot at this. What you see on TV in the so-called journalists, the so-called hosts, the nature of the guests that they choose, is the ruling class, the elitists, who don't want these changes. What you're seeing from these judges is a concerted, organized effort to thwart them. The unelected judges. And they're getting more aggressive. Their statements and their opinions are getting more political, more extreme than ever before. Especially this judge, who was very angry that his verbal order, and then put in writing but too late, about the planes with the Venezuelan criminals, the gang members, didn't turn around and come back. There's another one who said she is banning forever. The banning of transgender individuals from the military. And it's going on and on and on. We just had a judge rule minutes ago that the administration, the executive branch run by President Trump, that he and DOGE may not look at the Social Security information. Can you imagine? They may not. Chuck Schumer gave it up on PBS NewsHour yesterday. He gave it up. I've told you exactly what's going on, and now so does he. Cut 12, go.
There are those who believe that we are, in real time, living through an assault on the constitutional order. Do you believe that we are in a constitutional crisis?
So first of all, this guy's a complete ass. PBS, the Public Broadcasting Service. Guy's a punk. And they are there representing the government, the ruling class. Folks, I don't know how to stress this enough, and I mean it. My shows Saturday and Sunday on Fox, Life, Liberty, and Levin are going to be crucially important. Crucially. Excuse me. I can tell you that for my opening statement, Saturday night, it will be my longest. It's very complicated subjects, and I'm taking them and I'm taking my time to put it in plain English and to explain to all of you, everybody else who's watching, judges and others, to explain to them what's actually taking place. But I want you to hear what Schumer has to say here. Go.
Yes, our democracy is at risk because Donald Trump shows that he wishes to violate the laws in many, many different ways. The good news here is we did put 235 judges progressive judges, judges not under the control of Trump last year on the bench, and they are ruling against Trump time after time after time. And we hope that the appellate courts, when it gets up there in the Supreme Court, will uphold those rulings. They restored the money to NIH. They required that 8,000 federal employees have to come back. We're in over 100 lawsuits against them, and we are having a good deal of success. It's only at the lower court level right now.
You got that? I want to play it again, just to make sure everybody hears it. Play it again, Mr. Producer. Go.
There are those who believe that we are, in real time, living through an assault on the constitutional order. Do you believe that we are in a constitutional crisis right now?
Yes, our democracy is at risk because Donald Trump shows that he wishes to violate the laws in many, many different ways. The good news here is we did put 235 judges, progressive judges, judges not under the control of Trump last year on the bench, and they are ruling against Trump time after time after time. And we hope that the appellate courts, when it gets up there in the Supreme Court, will uphold those rulings. They restored the money to NIH. They required that 8,000 federal employees have to come back. We're in over 100 lawsuits against them, and we are having a good deal of success. It's only at the lower court level right now.
You understand, everything I've been saying now has just been confirmed by this buffoon. Now, he's bragging about it because his back's against the wall. But they have politicized, in ways we've never seen before, the appointment of lower federal court judges. He's bragging about over 200 that they rammed through. And this is what these seeds of radicalism have sowed. Exactly what I said. They have completely poisoned the federal judiciary. And John Roberts better get off his ass and do something about this, or it's going to swamp him too. There's hundreds of these people. Hundreds. Now, we'll get into this more. But before we do, I want to make a suggestion. I want to make a suggestion to Elon Musk's lawyers. You know, you don't have to take all this attack on your business, on Tesla, the efforts to destroy it, the firebombing, the shootings, the attacks, this concerted, funded campaign, including with dark money by the Democrat Party billionaires and others. Elon Musk's attorneys should look at the possibility of bringing, and I see I misspelled bringing, Mr. Producer, if you'll fix that. Thank you. The possibility, because I'm posting this, of bringing tortious interference lawsuits, tortious interference of his business, against those who are trying to destroy Tesla, including members of Congress. Members of Congress are not protected by the speech and debate clause when, one, their speech is made outside of Congress, and two, it's unrelated to their official duties. But those organizing and funding efforts to destroy Tesla, those carrying out the efforts, and others might well be liable for their activities. It's certainly worth a close look. And I would encourage Elon Musk to do exactly that. I would encourage Elon Musk to do exactly that and have his lawyers take a very good look at this. Start gathering the information of who's doing what, who's saying what. And if this is a concerted campaign, which of course it is, there's a whole website, or there's even more than one, I guess, that are set up, that are being funded to destroy his business. That's what they want to do. Even if it's not a long shot, but it's a legitimate case that might be difficult, me, if I were he, I'd still bring it. No business should have to put up with this. A concerted effort by members of government, members of Congress, billionaires, activists, intimidating customers, intimidating Tesla owners, intimidating dealerships, besmirching and smearing him and his product. I think there's a lot there. That's just me. And I hope he'll pay attention to what I post. I know he watches all these posts and so forth. I'm not interested in finding out his number and calling him and doing all the rest of it. I'll leave that to others at Fox, Hannity, others. They can track him down and pass on the information. I hope they do. I hope they do, because I think this is important, Mr. Producer. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leaders as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our Founding Fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation. Now this is precious. One more Schumer cut. I don't want to destroy your dinner out there, those of you who are at the dinner table. I know it's tough. It's tough to swallow this crap. Cut 21, go.
This week, the president called to impeach a judge who ruled against him on deportations of alleged Venezuelan gang members, as you know. Supreme Court Justice John Roberts released a rare statement rebuking the idea of using...
You see where the media are on all this, America. This is the Pravda Al Jazeera media. They're basically an appendage of the state. And when I say state, I mean the permanent government, the administrative state. The Democrat Party created it, essentially. They created these radical left judges and put them in office, populate our federal judiciary. They've destroyed that. And then we have morons on Meet the Depressed like this. We're in a constitutional crisis, and of course it's Trump's fault. He's the one defending the Constitution, defending executive powers under Article 2, challenging the judiciary's overreach, usurpation, challenging it. And he is creating a constitutional crisis. They are cherry-picking these judges. They know who they are. They know what districts they're in. They're bringing these lawsuits every single time Donald Trump acts. This has been the plan. The plan in case he won, and now he won. We've talked about that, too. A bunch of lawyers getting together saying we're going to litigate this to death. So they worked with the Democrats to get as many of these people through as they could, to get them confirmed. Now they're in place. Just remember, what is a judge? These lower court, they're lawyers. And all they do is they get nominated and they get convicted. They don't go through any rigorous process. They don't go through any electoral process. They don't have to reveal themselves even to the Senate. They do their very best to lie and deceive, to manipulate their records. We're going to have to take a break, but when we come back, Chuck Schumer on Meet the Depressed, we're in a constitutional crisis. He just said that they put these judges in place to stop Trump. He just said that he wants these judges to interfere in the executive branch if he wants them to stop Trump. And then they talk about a constitutional crisis. It's not a constitutional crisis because the Democrats lost. Folks, I need to talk to you about something crucial to the future of America. Our friends at the Heritage Foundation are on the front lines fighting for our conservative values. Heritage is dedicated to promoting policies that will help bolster our economy, protect our borders, and uphold the rule of law. They're working tirelessly to defend our Constitution and the principles that make America exceptional. To help accomplish this, they need you to complete their national survey on President Trump's agenda today. So you can participate in this survey by going to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Your responses are crucial to this survey, and they'll provide Heritage leadership with crucial feedback as they work closely with the folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. By completing this very important survey today, you're standing up for the values that have made this country great. And my friends at Heritage need you to act now to maximize their impact on President Trump's first 100 days. So please don't wait. Our future depends on you. Together, we can make a difference, and future generations inherit a nation that is free, prosperous, and strong. So please, right now, visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, complete your survey, and join the fight for America's future. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation. Jasmine Crockett is a crackpot, and she is a media, well, she's on the media a lot, isn't she, Mr. Producer? Apparently doesn't do her job much. And she's out there targeting Tesla. She's targeting Tesla. Cut 9, go.
So I'll make sure that I keep it short, but I am truly here for very selfish reasons. Starting with on March 29th, it's my birthday. And all I want to see happen on my birthday is for Elon to be taken down. Yes. Listen, I have learned as I serve on the DOGE Oversight Committee that there is only one language that the people that are in charge understand right now. And that language is money.
So she wants him taken down, which means she wants his businesses taken down. Cut 10, go.
I have learned as I serve on the DOGE Oversight Committee that there is only one language that the people that are in charge understand right now. And that language is money. And so I've been so proud to see us organize behind a cause, because here's the deal. The things that we're fighting for, we are fighting for our country. We're fighting for democracy. We're fighting for our freedoms. And when I say fighting, I'm saying that figuratively. Obviously, everything that I am promoting is nonviolent. And so definitely don't want anyone to take that word literal in any way. But I think that it is important that we say that we stand for freedom in this country. We stand for our Constitution.
All right, now she's rambling because she was starting to step in it. Worried that she would drag herself into the violence that's taking place. Let's make no mistake about it. They're targeting this man. They're targeting his businesses. They're putting a target on him. He's talked about death threats, how he has to have security around himself. These Tesla dealerships, they're on edge. They're worried. People who own Teslas are concerned. So this is having a real effect on this company. A real effect, this domestic terrorism and violence that's taking place. It absolutely is. And, the propaganda from the left, I believe, was part and parcel responsible for 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump. And they haven't learned a damn thing from it. I told you at the time, I don't think they really gave a damn either. Didn't I say that, Mr. Producer? I really don't. They went through the motions for about 24 hours, barely 48 hours, and they're back at it again. And they're doing it now. And they're also doing it to Elon Musk. This is what the Marxist left does. This is what they do. Rules for radicals. Target your opponents and personalize it. They do it to Clarence Thomas. They do it to Sam Alito. This is what they do. And they're doing it right now. So as you can see, we're intermixing the judge issue / Constitution issue and what they're doing to Elon Musk, because I think there's a relationship. They talk about democracy and freedom while they're trying to destroy the wealthiest man in the world, actually, who's created tens of thousands of jobs. They're trying to put him out of business, all the subcontractors out of business, and they don't care. They're the ones destroying our Constitution. Schumer said why they put all these judges on there. These judges are utterly and completely out of control. The vast majority of them, they're not Republican judges doing this. In fact, the vast majority of these cases aren't even being heard by Republican judges. Isn't that amazing? You filed, by my count, 129 cases as of yesterday. The vast majority of them in major Democrat cities. And the vast majority of those, the overwhelming majority of those, filed in those cities in front of one of these progressive, quote-unquote, Marxist judges. Wow, that's an amazing scorecard, don't you think? And they're performing as expected. In other words, they're form shopping. They're cherry-picking the judges. They know which judges will deliver for them. Gee, how do they know that? And there they are, getting what they're asking for. So there's no deference to the executive branch, to Article 2 of the Constitution, to separation of powers. But it is they who run around, talk about a constitutional crisis. It's their reporters, like the idiot on Meet the Press, and she is an idiot, who ask questions by putting question marks on the end of them, but are actually making statements as if they're one of these Democrat hacks in Congress. They're not serious. They're not inquisitive. They're not curious. It's part of the problem in this country. We don't have a real press. We have propagandists. We have ideologues. That's what we have. Heavily populated, these corporations, these media corporations, by Democrats and left-wing Democrats. That's why Bernie Sanders is on all the time. He's a Stalinist. That's why Raskin's on all the time. He's a Stalinist. That's why AOC's on all the time. Same with her. Same with her. Here's Schumer, the guy who just said we're loading up the courts with quote-unquote progressives. He doesn't say constitutionalists, does he? He doesn't say people who are going to uphold the Constitution. No, progressives. Well, what's a progressive? We've talked about it for years. I've written about it in many books. They are the progeny of Hegel and Marx. They reject our founding. They reject the Declaration. They reject the Constitution. That's what they are. He's used the word progressives. The progressives intellectuals 100 years ago and since have made it clear they reject the idea of eternal laws and forever principles. They reject the idea of separation of powers and a constitution that they believe inhibits progress and modernity. That's what they've written. That's what they've said. I've read it. I read it to you. I've explained it to you. I've written about it. So when he gets up and he says, we loaded the courts, over 200 progressives near the end of Biden's term. We did it purposely to stop Trump. He is telling you. The media are too stupid for this, or they're too ideological for this. But even our friends, I don't know why, they're asleep at the wheel. I'm telling you this. He's just admitted, he's confessed what they've done. And then he comes around, because they're propagandists, and says this. Cut 21, go.
This week, the president called to impeach a judge who ruled against him on deportations of alleged Venezuelan gang members, as you know. Supreme Court Justice John Roberts released a rare statement rebuking the idea of using impeachment to settle judicial disagreements. Some constitutional scholars and fellow Democrats, Leader Schumer, say this is a constitutional crisis. Do you agree?
Look how she sets it up. Roberts, some constitutional lawyers and Democrats. What is the question? She just gives the answer, the Schumer answer. That's the problem with all these people living and working and dating and marrying and socializing. in the District of Columbia. They all sound the same. They all believe the same. This is a joke. Meet the press. Tim Russert wouldn't conduct an interview this way. Lawrence Spivak, before Tim Russert, he wouldn't conduct an interview this way. It's a disgrace. It's disgusting. All he has to say is, I agree. He doesn't even need to answer the question. I agree with your question. I agree with the substance of it, the purpose of it. I agree with it. Next question. Anyway, go.
It's in a constitutional crisis?
Yes, I do, Kristen, and democracy is at risk. Look,
so keep something in mind. This guy's desperate. So he's going to get more extreme, more radical as time goes on in his statements. In his statements. Go ahead.
Donald Trump is a lawless, angry man. He thinks he should be king.
So here we go. We're going to trash Donald Trump. He thinks he should be king. It's amazing. It is amazing. Go ahead.
Whatever he wants, regardless of the law. And he thinks judges should just listen to him.
No, he doesn't think judges should just listen to him. He's defending the Constitution from your quote-unquote, all the progressives we put on the court to stop him. You jackass. You indicted yourself. Mr. Producer, pull it up again, and then we'll go back to this clip. Pull it up again, exactly what he said. Go ahead.
This week, the president called to impeach a judge who ruled against him on deportations of alleged Venezuelan gang members, as you know. Supreme Court Justice John Roberts released a rare statement.
No, not the same clip. What I meant was the one where he is saying that he put progressives on the court. Let's go for that one. Go ahead.
There are those who believe that we are in real time living through an assault on the constitutional order. Do you believe that we are in a constitutional crisis right now?
Yes, our democracy is at risk because Donald Trump shows that he wishes to violate the laws in many, many different ways. The good news here is we did put 235 judges, progressive judges, judges not under the control of Trump last year on the bench, and they are ruling against Trump time after time.
There you go. There you go. He's telling you what he did. He's telling you. That's it. Now let's go back to cut 21, Mr. Producer. Go ahead.
Constitutional scholars and fellow Democrats, Leader Schumer, say this is a constitutional crisis. Do you agree? Is the United States in a constitutional crisis?
Yes, I do, Kristen, and democracy is at risk. Look, Donald Trump is a lawless...
Okay, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. I'm going to keep interspersing other events here. The Medal of Honor, I believe it's a monument or facility, has opened in Washington. And the Medal of Honor recipients absolutely deserve it. The ones who have passed, we can certainly remember their memories. These are tremendously heroic individuals. But the fact that Qatar contributed millions of dollars to it, $5 million to it, and the fact that we've had men and women fight in the Middle East against forces that Qatar helped to fund, including now. Qatar's on the side of Hamas and the terrorists, is a disgrace. It's appalling. I don't know who's on the board of this thing. I don't know who the CEO is of this thing. Maybe it's Michael Bloomberg or somebody. I don't know. But they should give that $5 million back to Qatar. In fact, one of the leading figures in Qatar, one of the highest inbreds, was at this event, I believe. I think he was wearing a suit, so nobody would notice. But there it is, the Medal of Honor facility / monument in Washington now has this dirty money, $5 million from Qatar. I thought I'd point that out because it really is a horrible thing. And I blame the people who run the damn thing. Really blame them for it. I don't think they needed to get money from Qatar. And this is how Qatar buys its way into influence, creates the impression it supports the West and the United States. Well, it's funding the Hitler Youth on our college campuses. Well, it's funding people who support things like Khalil and so forth and so on. The President of the United States is trying to deal with all this. It's quite a mess. Quite a mess. Let me put it to you this way in the Constitution, Schumer and his ilk. They are trying to decapitate our government. The head of the government is the President of the United States. The head of our military, the Commander-in-Chief, is the President of the United States. They're trying to decapitate him. That is, decapitate our government and put in charge a bunch of radical left-wing Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Ivy League lawyers who are in black robes, who were pushed through the Senate, that Chuck Schumer was running as the Senate Democrat majority leader. So basically the same Ivy League schools that are destroying education, that have opened their arms to Marxists and Islamists, to American haters and Jew haters, those same Ivy League schools, they had their fingerprints and DNAs on many of these judges who graduated from these law schools, affiliated with these schools, and are now on the bench defending the Islamists and the Marxists. And their opinions, by the way, that I'm reading over time, they're almost childish in their emotion. I said the other day, they're like bad op-eds, opinion pieces, in some local newspaper. They're bereft of actual legal analysis. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leadership as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our Founding Fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation. The new voice of America right here, The Mark Levin Show. Donald Trump signed an executive order to begin the process to eliminate the Department of Education. It has to go through Congress. So the Democrats are talking about how this will harm your children. It has nothing to do with your children. The quality of public education stinks. The power of these two public sector unions is immense. The Democrat Party's in bed with them. They oppose school choice. They oppose allowing parents to send their kids to the quality school in their community. They force them to go into these, in many cases, decrepit public schools, or public schools that are filled with crime and what have you. This has nothing to do with funding public schools. The vast majority of funding for public schools comes from the local level and the state, not from the federal government. Most of what the federal government does is issue regulations and mandates and edicts. Most of what the Federal Department of Education does, it's a go-through, a pass-through for tens of billions of dollars in money with strings attached to the states and localities. It is completely unnecessary. It's not the Department of Education. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
The Democrat Party is the home to all these crackpots, Marxists, Islamists, more than them, crackpots generally. They're very unpopular in the United States right now, but they control these unelected branches. They control the unelected branches. You know, I've said here many, many times over the years, when the Democrats win elections, they claim to have a mandate. When Republicans win elections, they turn to their unelected parts of the government, don't they? That's what they do. And that's what they're doing. And it is they who are defying the will of the people. It is they who do not accept election losses. They're not accepting this election loss. They're not responding like a normal party. Now, over at Fox News, Scott Douglas Gerber writes, this isn't the first time Chief Justice Roberts took on President Trump, and he's been wrong every time. Federal judges are not supposed to criticize the President of the United States, other than in official opinions deciding cases in which the President is a party. That's 100% correct. The late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg apologized in 2016 for responding to a media inquiry by criticizing then presumptive Republican nominee for President Donald Trump. She nevertheless criticized Trump again a short time later, and both the New York Times and Washington Post, hardly pro-Trump media outlets, chastised her for it. The Times said that Trump, who'd been rebuked by Ginsburg for what she had said, was right. That is, Trump's response, that Ginsburg should drop the political punditry and the name-calling. The Post called her comments inappropriate. Apparently, Chief Justice John Roberts disagrees. After all, he recently criticized President Donald Trump in the media for a third time. Roberts first criticized Trump in 2018 when the president said an Obama judge often decides cases differently than a Republican judge. According to Roberts, the political party affiliation of a judge doesn't matter. Now, you just heard what Schumer said. So Roberts full of crap. You just heard what Schumer said. That it does matter. That his plan is being executed beautifully with all the judges that the Democrats put on the bench before Biden left. With all due respect, the Chief Justice is incorrect, he writes. Indeed, the first question that every litigator asks is, who is the judge? Obama judges are different from Trump judges, and judges nominated by Kamala Harris would have been different from Trump judges, too. This is just a fact, America. The fact that everybody knows who's in the process, including Schumer. 6 years later, on the eve of Trump's second inauguration, Roberts raised concerns the president might disregard federal court rulings. Chief Justice called that possibility dangerous, said it must be soundly rejected. Now, what Roberts failed to mention was that other presidents have disregarded federal court rulings when they felt their constitutional oath mandated them to do so. To mention the most dramatic, President Andrew Jackson responded to the Supreme Court's decision in Worcester versus Georgia by saying John Marshall has made his decision, I'll let him enforce it. So Jefferson tangled with Marshall, and so did Jackson. Now, Roberts' third public criticism of Trump, and by the way, I don't remember John Roberts saying anything when Joe Biden defied the Supreme Court on 3 occasions. Do you remember that, Mr. Producer? Not once. Roberts' third public criticism of Trump came earlier this week. Third. when he issued a statement in response to the president's call for a federal judge's impeachment because of his handling of the Alien and Sedition Act case. That's this clown Boasberg right now. For more than 2 centuries, he said, it's been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that reason. But this isn't a normal situation, is it, America? We've got scores of progressive judges, and they're really Marxists, but even Schumer admits they're progressives. Cherry-picking these judges by the petitioners. And Roberts says, oh, big deal. Just appeal. And it's funny, when there was an appeal, and the president took it all the way to the Supreme Court a couple of weeks ago, another rogue judge who ordered him to spend money he didn't want to spend, he wanted to look at it for 60 days, that is, for foreign activities. Roberts ruled against the president, ruled for the rogue judge, and didn't even give an explanation to the president or the American people. So that's Roberts' idea. Well, just appeal. Just appeal. Now, I assume Roberts will fix that at some point, but the time is late. The damage is being done. It's going to get harder and harder to put this back in the box. Now, Alexander Hamilton advised in the Federalist Papers that impeachment is a complete security, quote unquote, against the deliberate usurpations, quote unquote, of a federal judge. An unmistakable indication that the framers expected the impeachment power to be more frequently invoked than it already or actually has been. Now, as unsettling as the impeachment process may sometimes seem, the Constitution requires that it be sometimes used. I'm not big on it, not because I don't think it's applicable. I'm not big on it because no judge is going to be removed. They'll filibuster it. Excuse me. What I was trying to say is the amount of votes that's required to remove a judge is even higher than the filibuster. You need 67 votes. They're not going to get 67 votes. They have 53 Republicans. They won't get Murkowski and Collins and 2 or 3 other reprobates. So it's not going to work. Well, do it anyway and teach them. No. Eliminate their courtrooms. Governor DeSantis has said, and something I wrote in Men in Black, by the way, is you can also take jurisdiction away from them. But I don't even think that's enough. You got a guy like Boasberg, eliminate his courtroom, then he's gone. He's just gone. And he should be gone. Because this effort to put in over 200 progressives, quote unquote, that Schumer talks about, has poisoned the judiciary. Poisoned it. And in these present times, he writes, of judges reading their own politics into the law and opposing them on the rest of us, we have William Howard Taft, himself a great admirer of the Supreme Court, later as Chief Justice, the job he liked the most. He made the point in some remarks that about the perceived shortcomings of the judiciary. He said, make your judges responsible. Impeach them. Impeach if a judge will be a very healthy thing in these times. That's what he said. But John Roberts is in no position to pontificate anyway. Number one, he shouldn't. But he can't help himself, especially because of Trump. Again, he's friends with Thomas Friedman. Their wives are friends. And number two, he lives and operates in and around Washington. So he's part of that social milieu. That's what happens to him. Number three, we certainly do miss Chief Justice William Rehnquist, do we not? He was not part of the social milieu. He didn't give a damn what the media said. And he would have voted with the other 4 who were stunned, as Sam Alito wrote on behalf of Kavanaugh, Thomas, and Gorsuch. They were stunned that the Chief Justice and Barrett threw in with the 3 radicals, quote unquote, the progressives, when he should have addressed it then, could have addressed it then, and put this to an end right out of the box. But he didn't. So now he's lecturing the President of the United States. This guy's a mess. John Roberts is a mess. Johnny, you're a mess. That's the way it is, and it's true. He's a mess. Do your damn job, man. Do your damn job. Meanwhile, we have this judge, this Boasberg. Here, Reuters. Judge warns of consequences if Trump administration violated his deportation order. As I explained on the lovely Martha McCallum's show, and she is a great journalist. Hey, pal. Hey, lawyer in a robe. You didn't even put your order in writing until it was too late. Is that why you're really angry? Is that why you're pissed off because you're a schmuck? Trump administration could face consequences if it violated a judge's order temporarily blocking the deportation of hundreds of Venezuelan migrants, the judge said. District Judge James Boasberg said the administration could choose to invoke the state secrets doctrine and so forth, and they have, and they responded this evening. And you know what this clown said? He's appalled by their response. In 3 pages, he wrote. Appalled. Doesn't cut it. This is how he talks to a president of the United States. This nobody. Nobody. He didn't present himself to the American people. The American people don't know who he is. They don't know where he came from. They don't know his background. It was an inside Washington, D.C. appointment. The guy's nominated by Obama, goes through the Senate process, he gets confirmed, and there he is. Hardly what a president goes through to become president of the United States. I'm just telling you right now, despite what you're hearing from these phony constitutional experts, they're not. These phony professors, they're not. These loudmouth hosts on these Sunday shows and these other shows, morons. Former federal this, former federal that. They're jokes. Despite what you hear, the men who created this country, founded this country, wrote the Constitution, debated the Constitution, ratified the Constitution. Not one of them would be supporting what's going on today. Not one. And the Chief Justice of the United States has the gall to issue that absurd, it's not an opinion, ruling without an opinion. And then lecture the President of the United States, not the rogue judge. And then the ruling class media, the ruling class academia, all piled up because Donald Trump's taking them on. Really the first president effectively to grab the bulls by the horn and to wrestle them to the ground. So now tonight a judge says they don't have access to the Social Security information. Can you believe that? You believe that? The President of the United States. They're trying to figure out if these checks are going out as they're supposed to. You know what the judge said? It's a fishing expedition. Now think about this moron judge. Is that how audits work? All audits are fishing expeditions. That is, you got to look at the data, you got to look at the information, you got to look at the receipts, the invoices, you got to look at you got to look at this stuff to see if everything's being handled properly. That's what you do. Call it a fishing expedition, call it an audit, call it whatever you want. You're not allowed to do that at Social Security. $50 to $100 billion in fraud. Killing the program. Killing it. Our money going into it. People relying on it. The judge says, no. I want you to understand these judges. They're not bigger than life. They are lawyers. They're flesh and blood. They all have opinions. All of them. They all have imperfections. Some of them very severe. Their work environment, just so you understand, is you have the judge and you have 2 or 3 clerks. Recently graduated from law school. Most of them have worked on the law review. Most, but not all, have come out of these Ivy League schools. So they're literally sitting down with their clerks and deciding whether the President of the United States should have access to the Social Security information. Whether they should turn a plane around. You understand what I'm saying, Mr. Producer? How preposterous this is? The president's just elected. He's a constitutional officer, the highest we have in the land. The only one that's elected, he and the vice president, nationwide. Up against some clown lawyer pulled from obscurity, In the case of Boasberg, chosen because he's a radical kook by Obama, and but George W. Bush appointed. I've explained that at length. I'm not going to go back for the slow listeners. And now the question is whether the president's going to bend his knee to Judge Boasberg. Is he going to follow the order or is he not? Is he going to do what he's told? And not just Judge Boasberg, Judge fill in the blank. All these progressive judges that Schumer got in there. There's 25 of these guys ruling this way. Is the president going to follow their orders? No data. No payroll information. We, the court, we're in charge of the data and the payroll information. We in the permanent bureaucracy, unelected judges and unelected bureaucrats, they're in charge, not the president. What about the border? What about immigration? What about deportation? Used to be just clear that the president has absolute plenary authority. Not now. Every one of them is going to be looked at by the Democrats. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then try blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company. I want to thank you all. We're watching Life, Liberty, and Levin on the weekends. Our numbers are fantastic, and that's thanks to you. You know, this 8 p.m. slot, it's much like the 6 to 9 p.m. slot. You're really up against everything. Prime time. You know, people have other things to do. They're not necessarily watching TV or, in the case of radio, listening to the radio. So this is the toughest real estate. And yet there you are. That is, we have the largest audience possible in these time slots. Nobody can do better. And it's thanks to you, because you're loyal. And that's why I'm loyal to you. Jamie Raskin is a Marxist, and he likes to cite the Constitution because that's what Marxists do. No, we have 1 minute, so never mind. I got to do this after the break. But he talks about how the Republicans are at war with the government of the people. I mean, the kind of language these people are using, seriously, I think Raskin is trying to incite violence. That's the Stalinist, Marxist attitude. I think the Democrats are trying to incite violence. I really do. You can see it with Musk. You can see it with Tesla. I think they have used January 6th to deflect who they are and what they are. Very few Democrats have condemned, and certainly not consistently, the Marxist Islamists on the campus of Columbia and Barnard and all the other schools and so forth. Very few of them have spoken out in any aggressive way about all the women who were sold into sex slavery on the border under their policies, or all the undocumented children who are still missing that they're looking for in the Trump administration. This is a very violent party. This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then try blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company. We're moving around here, bobbing and weaving, shucking and jiving. That's what we do. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Lot to do, lot to cover. We get to all of it. By the way, on ratings, I thank you folks. TV ratings are a lot more accurate than radio ratings, by the way. They literally have ratings boxes. So they literally know how many people are actually watching at any given minute of any given day. And I can tell you at Fox, they not only see what your numbers are, but they also look at the competition that you're up against. And so they look at NBC, ABC, CBS, CBS. They look at CNN and MSNBC. And then they look at the time period you're in. This time period, 6 to 9 Eastern. You know, depending on the season, so forth. There are Little League games, basketball games. There's dinner, birthday parties. You're going to have March Madness coming up, all this sort of stuff. So the brunt of that falls between 6 and 9 p.m. So our affiliates that are smart and they know this business and they understand this business, they get it. And then on top of that, you have podcasting and satellite and all the rest of it. So they get it. They're smart. They're professionals. Same with Fox. So at the 8 p.m. slot, they have two big network shows I shall not mention, but they're on NBC and CBS. And they're on at 8 p.m. Now, before that, we had Sunday Night Football that starts around 8 p.m. And so they look at these things. They go, oh, my God, your ratings. And same with radio in the vast majority of our markets. The people know what they're looking at. They know what they're doing. Some markets don't have the foggiest idea, but that's the way it is. Look at your numbers. Look what you're up against. Look what you're up against. It's not the same thing. For morning shows, late morning shows, early afternoon shows, or late afternoon shows. Dinner time is dinner time. The other thing is this. We have to go up against. We looked at this. We analyzed this at Westwood One. I hope this stuff is interesting to people. People ask me about this stuff all the time, so Westwood One that syndicates my show, they look at this all the time. We look in our different markets, which are baseball and basketball and football. In baseball season, as an example, in New York, there's a lot of baseball fans, right, Mr. Producer? You got two teams now, especially the Mets, that are really muscled up. But the Yankees have great players, too, like Judd and so forth. The vast majority of their games, one or the other, cut into this program's time. That's not true with the other time slots. So now and then there's an afternoon game and so forth, but most of the time there's an evening game or a nighttime game, whether it's the Mets or the Yankees, one or the other. So this time slot's up against that, too. And look, I've been doing this almost 25 years. I know what we're up against. And we don't care. We fight along. We do our thing. We draw the audience. This is what we do. The technology's changing. Podcasting. We talk about podcasts, too. In fact, local stations talk about podcasts. Local stations, particularly in the bigger markets, they promote their own podcasts. We have our podcast. Our podcast runs basically the radio show that you can listen to at any time. So there is all this competition, technological competition, competition with sports, competition with other stations, competition. And the pinnacle of it is from 6 to 9 p.m. The pinnacle of it on the weekends on cable is 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And this is why we like what we do. Not only because we like the substance of it, we like the competition, we like to take it on. When I started in radio 6 to 9, it was dead. It was dead on WABC. They tried everything. They tried everyone. Nothing was working. Rich, you've been with me from day one. You remember all that too, right? You were with those other people before I stepped in. They had younger people. They had shows with 2 people. They had shows that were focused on women. They had shows that were focused on sport. 6 to 9, it was dead. And now here we are, 20-some years later. When I was asked to do the Fox show, and I was asked on Sundays, we started at 10 p.m. The ratings were so strong, they moved me to 8 p.m. And the ratings were so strong there, they asked if I would do it on Saturday, too. I really had, a lot of thinking to do about that, and so did my wife, because, we need some time. Family. But after 3 months, I said, okay. So Saturday and Sunday, we are the pole in the tent, as one of the executive vice presidents called it. Steady Eddie. Whether it's football, whether it's one of the Hollywood things, TV, awards, movie awards, whatever. Whether it's 8 p.m.'s huge. It's the main primetime hour in the network, so they throw everything they can at you. CNN threw Bill Maher. Didn't work. They've thrown everything they can. Doesn't work. MSNBC has surrendered. They've given up. And this is all thanks to you, folks. Thanks to you. So now I hope I'm answering the lady in the diner that keeps asking me about ratings, Mr. Producer. How does it work? And blah, blah, blah. Now you know how it works. Also, there are things like Talk Magazine. Talk Magazine puts out every year a list of so-called heavy hitters. It's not actually based on facts. It's not actually based on the size of the audience. It's not actually based on, like a syndicated show like this, what stations we're on. And that matters. Some people say, I'm on 700 stations. Well, they're on HD stations. They're on satellite. Rush Limbaugh told me when I started, it doesn't matter how many stations you're on. It matters what stations you're on and what markets you're in. But this Talkers Magazine, the guy who runs it, apparently he doesn't understand that. Maybe he does, but he doesn't care. And so I've been criticizing them over the years for what they do. So they put out this list. And so, look at this list. So remember that, Mr. Producer? I was number 2, then number 3, now I'm number 6. And we are by far the second largest radio show in the nation, almost number 1. It's the way it is. It's the truth. The industry knows it. Westwood One knows it. We all know it. That's because of you. That's because of you, patriots, who come here. It's almost like appointment radio. You do this. It doesn't matter what Talkers Magazine says. It doesn't matter what somebody says. It's irrelevant. You're here. That's why I call this the nation's biggest town hall meeting. The nation's biggest town hall meeting. When you look at this platform in radio, which I love radio, then put our podcast on top of that, then put our satellite radio on top of that, then put our apps and live streaming on top of that. There are millions and millions of listeners, and we don't even know how many, but we know it's a lot. And when you combine that with the Fox platform, and when you combine it with my books, all of which are number 1 New York Times bestseller, and you combine it with the Blaze, which is a fantastic platform that I love, digital, we're ubiquitous. That's why I get no sleep. But we have to be. I'm not going to live forever. I'm not going to be able to do this forever. Some people hang on till they're in their 80s and 90s. I'm not one of them. At that point, you need to hand it off. And last thing, I'm a believer in the next generation. I'm a believer in helping the next generation. I've had substitutes on this program, regular substitutes, Dan Bongino, Ben Shapiro, Michael Berry, Larry O'Connor, Brian Mudd, Ben Ferguson, others. We used to have Will Cow on. I'm a believer in giving these people a chance. And you should know that there are really one, but there are some people who try to prevent that. It's not going to happen. I'm an activist. I'm a believer in this industry. I'm a believer in our country. And I'm a believer that we ought to leave for the next generation, whether it's radio or a country, leave it better than when we were there. And so that's what I do. I make this platform available to others so that when that day comes, hopefully voluntarily, I decide that's enough. They step in. And I'm proud of it. I'm happy about it. I truly am. It's a good thing. We're going to move on to more substantive things, but I'm asked about this stuff all the time, so I just figure in one big swoop, let me just deal with it. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then try blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company. I know a lot of you do this. I do it from time to time. When I hear people say, "Where are you at?" ending in a preposition, I cringe. No, where are you? Not where are you at. What do you say, Mr. Producer? Do you say where are you at? Where you be? Now, Mr. Producer has a problem with one word. Can you open your microphone, please? Can you pronounce the word ASK?
I will ask you a question.
Say it again?
Axe.
Axe. You can't help it, can you?
I can't.
So this is a thing. I hear it all the time. Axe. Let me ask you a question. It's ask, of course, but that's okay. I'm not a linguistic expert. You know, it's funny. My mother, she didn't teach school for long, but she was a fourth grade teacher for a couple of years. And she actually knew how to teach. And she would teach me these rules that made it easy, because English is a tough language. It's a tough language, particularly for people who have it as a second language. It's very tough. Because there are rules and then there aren't rules. You know, it's just experience. It's you're enmeshed in the language, so you know when to use things and when not. But most people don't know when to use I or me. They don't know how to use I or me. Frank and me, or Frank and I, so typically they'll say Frank and myself. You ever heard that, Mr. Producer? That's not right either. So, is it me or is it I? How do you know? Well, the trick my mother taught me was forget about Frank and talk about yourself mentally. I am going to the park. So Frank and I are going to the park. Did you ever learn it that way, Mr. Producer? So it's not me is going to the park. It's Frank and I. Did you learn it from me? Did I teach you that? Probably. So anyway, that's how you learn it. That's how you do it. There's other little tricks out there too, but I was very fortunate to have that mother. Miss her a lot, miss my father a lot, miss them all the time. Claire McCaskill is, besides from being a slob, she's always on MSLSD. She's on our friend Joe Scarborough's program often. I guess she gets the big chair, if you know what I mean, the wide chair. Just saying, look, I'm an observer. I'm an analyst. I'm analyzing it. And she has really been under the radar, but shouldn't be. She has used some of the most disgusting, outrageous, ad hominem attacks against Donald Trump of anybody on TV. Anybody. Donald Trump is trying to disappear people like Putin. She should be given the yank. She should be given the hook. She should be thrown off TV forever. But she won't be. But she should be. It's outrageous. All right, where am I, Mr. Producer? Help me. Oh, you already told me that. I'll be right back.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
You know, the last people you listen to are the Democrats, that is the Democrat Party and their teachers' unions, when it comes to education. Because they've done nothing but disastrous things to our kids. Look what they did during COVID. Look what they teach our kids. Look what they put in school libraries. Look at the test results. Department of Education is the Department of No Education. So I wanted to have a little bit of fun with you. When I wrote the book Men in Black, my first book, in my preface I wrote, men, not gods. The biggest myth about judges is that they're somehow imbued with greater insights, wisdom, and vision than the rest of us. That for some reason God Almighty has endowed them with superior judgment about justice and fairness. But the truth is, judges are men and women with human imperfections and frailties. Some have been brilliant, principled, and moral. Others have been mentally impaired, venal, and even racist. Barely 100 justices have served on the United States Supreme Court. I guess since I wrote this, probably about 125. But these courts are involved in every aspect of the culture, every aspect of our lives. And then I decided in this book, let's discuss some of these justices. Let's do that. There was John Rutledge. He was appointed by Washington in 1795 by recess appointment. Became the nation's second Chief Justice. He had been a United States Senator from South Carolina. He wrote that after the death of his wife, or it was written that after the death of his wife, his mind was frequently so much deranged as to be in great measure deprived of his senses. But he stayed on the bench. There had been rumors that his mind was unsettled, quote unquote, and he was becoming insane, quote unquote. His depression was so serious that he made 2 failed suicide attempts. Very sad. One shortly before and one soon after the Senate rejected his nomination as Chief Justice, but he was an Associate Justice. There was Robert Brockhost Livingston, appointed by Jefferson. 1806, he'd killed a man in a duel before his appointment to the court. There was Henry Baldwin. Baldwin was appointed by Andrew Jackson. 1830 and 1832, it was reported that he was seized today with a fit of derangement. So he lost his mind while he was on the bench, too, but he stayed there a long time. There was Robert Greer, appointed by James Polk in 1846. He suffered paralysis in 1867. He began a slow mental decline. Greer's case is most troubling because he was the swing vote in one of the most important cases in the era, Hepburn versus Griswold, which struck down the law allowing the federal government to print paper money. They all sound like Joe Biden in a way, don't they, Mr. Producer? There was Nathan Clifford. He was appointed by James Buchanan. I view him as the worst president. In 1858, and after a period of mental decline, he suffered a stroke in 1880, just before the beginning of the October term of 1880. They say he was babbling like an idiot. He didn't know what he was doing. But he stayed on the court until 1881 when he passed away. There was Stephen Field, appointed by Lincoln in 1863, was one of the longest-serving justices. As Chief Justice, William Rehnquist wrote, at the end of Field's service, he, quote, became increasingly lame and often seemed lethargic to his colleagues. During the winter of 1896-97, remember, this guy had been appointed by Lincoln. His condition worsened, and his questions in the courtroom indicated that he had no idea where he was or what he was talking about. There was James McKenna, was appointed by William McKinley in 1897. His mental faculties began to decline as he approached his 80s after Chief Justice William Taft failed to convince McKenna that it was time to retire because he had lost his mind. Taft called a meeting of the other justices at his home. They decided they could not allow McKenna to cast the deciding vote in the court's decisions. So from then on, they agreed that if there was a split vote among them, they would change the votes and not allow the case to go forward. Court did hold a few cases over until McKenna finally agreed to retire. There was the infamous, James McReynolds. It's a racist. Who do you think appointed him? A famous Democrat by the name of Woodrow Wilson in 1914. Now, he was a notorious anti-Semite. He said he didn't want the court plagued by another Jew, quote unquote. There is no official photograph for the court for 1924 because McReynolds refused to stand next to Justice Louis Brandeis, the court's first Jewish justice. He would leave the room when Brandeis would speak in conference. He was also openly hostile toward the second Jewish justice, Benjamin Cardozo. He often held a brief or record in front of his face when Cardozo delivered the opinion from the bench on the court that day. A McReynolds law clerk, John Knox, also wrote that the justice disapproved of the fact that Knox had been polite to McReynolds' African-American servants, Harry and Mary. McReynolds told him, now this was a justice appointed by Wilson, a Democrat, I realize that you are a Northerner who's never been educated or reared in the South, but I want you to know, he said to his clerk, that you are becoming much too friendly with Henry. You seem to forget that he's a Negro, and you're a graduate at Harvard Law School. And yet for days now, it has been obvious to me that you are, well, treating Henry and Mary like equals. Really, a law clerk to a justice of the Supreme Court of the United States should have some feeling about his position and not wish to associate with colored servants the way that you're doing. I do wish that you would think of my wishes in this manner in your future relations with quote-unquote darkies. That was a justice of the court appointed by Wilson. Hugo Black. I can go on. Hugo Black. Others. William O. Douglas chasing women around the conference table. He lost his mind, but he stood on the court. I think he was one of the longest-serving justices. Charles Whitaker, appointed by Eisenhower, said to be vacillating, indecisive. He had a nervous breakdown, and he retired 5 years after his nervous breakdown. We have Abe Fortas, who was crooked, with Lyndon Johnson. We have Thurgood Marshall, who near the end of his term was watching soap operas and wasn't writing his opinions. The clerks were. And I could go on and on. Now imagine what's going on the lower court levels, the federal district courts, where you have a judge and a couple law clerks who are deciding foreign policy, immigration policy, who are deciding human resources policies, who are deciding if the president can actually look at the data that his executive branch is collecting on Social Security at the Treasury Department, who are deciding whether wokeism, like DEI, shall take place. The judge said, yes, it will. And that judge, as a lawyer, had been working on DEI his entire career. And on and on and on. Presidents elected by all the people. Subjected to press conferences. Subjected to questions. To challenges, but not a federal judge. Oh, Your Honor. Oh, Your Honor. Oh, Your Honor. Oh, Your Honor. What a disaster we have on our hands, America. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pleasure to have Benjamin Hall with us with his fantastic book, Resolute, How We Humans Keep Finding Ways to Beat the Toughest Odds. You've been through hell, Benjamin Hall. In your first book, you laid it out in great detail. And you not only survived, you have really thrived. You're a man of great spirit, a man of family. Your wife has been the biggest supporter. You've been... and you still are working at Fox. I know how much work is involved in writing a book. So, Benjamin Hall, tell us about this fantastic book, Resolute.
Well, Mark, last time you and I spoke, I'd just written the first book, and that was really about my experiences after I was injured in Ukraine. And I thought that I had gotten through the most difficult parts. I thought that when I got home again, that the hard parts were over. And I was totally wrong, Mark. The difficult moments arrive when you get home, when you no longer have doctors and physios and nurses. You don't have 24-hour care, and you have to take your injuries. You have to take everything that is holding you back, and you go home with that. And I was just amazed to see how hard that was for a while with my family and the pressures it put on that. And so I had another whole segment of having to get through that as well. And what I have learned, time and time again, is that every time you encounter a hurdle, you find ways through it. And that's what I try to write in this book, my own experiences, very openly, some of the tough times. But in each single case, I found that if you look at it closely, you focus your mind, you set yourself goals, just as you said, you don't just come through it, you thrive, you get stronger. And I'm very lucky to have reached a position now where, challenges don't upset me anymore. I see them as opportunities. And that, I think, is what I wanted to convey in the book. I wanted to pass that on to anyone else who's going through difficult times. And when I say difficult times, I don't mean injuries and prosthetics like mine. I mean, financial problems or family issues or anxiety. There are ways of getting through all of these, and I've tried to use my own experiences to convey that.
When you have the kind of experience you did, I mean, life-threatening, the physical effects, you lost friends. It also has an impact on you mentally, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely, and that was another battle as well. You have to, firstly I had sort of traumatic brain injury, and I had to figure out a way of getting through that. And, I changed the way in which I prepare for things. I changed the way in which I address things, and I found a way to solve some of those problems. I also, and I write in the book about the flashbacks I have. You know, what happened that day, the explosion, my friends and colleagues dying alongside me, I still go back to that moment. I still feel those, but that no longer upsets me. Those are things that happened in my life. Those are the burdens I have to carry. And you can go in two ways. You can let those crumble you, or you can take them and you can say, I'm going to go and try and live a better life because of it. I'm going to make those drive me. I'm going to make sure that I don't waste the second life I've been given. And that's how I've managed to get through the worst. And again, you know, it reminds me not to take anything for granted. And so, yes, there are psychological issues. But again, you can find your way through those as well. And once you've solved those, then again, you are better than you were before.
And you talk about in the book kind of role changes or role reversals with your wife, that because of your physical condition and so forth, that you talk about this experience you had when somebody was at the door and you thought they were breaking in. Explain that.
Well, I mean, there were actually a couple of people who did break into my house, and I was just returned home from hospital, and you know, it was the middle of the night at 2 a.m., and two people broke in downstairs, and they were robbing the house. Now, our dog started to bark, and it was my pregnant wife, Alicia. She jumped up and said, I've got to go downstairs. And I said, you've got to wait for me. You can't go. And she said, I'm not letting them get near the children. And she was the one who ran downstairs, screaming, shouting, flailing at them, and she chased the robbers away. But what a reversal that was. I was the man of the house. I was the person who was supposed to protect our household, protect my family, and I was unable to do that. I couldn't get my prosthetics on in time. I was still upstairs. And that was a bit of a hit that time, because I realized that what a reversal. My wife had to step in when I couldn't do something, and that one moment actually had, you know, a bit of a hit on me. But, you know, my wife is an incredible person who knows when roles reverse in some cases. There are things I can't do at home because of my injuries that she has stepped up and said, I'll do that. And I say, well, I will do something else that you used to do. And so we have balanced out what we can do and what we can't do. And that, I think, is a great relationship. And I got through this because of her and her strength.
When you look at what's going on now with Ukraine and Russia, and there's an effort by President Trump to try and bring this war to an end. And, you know, initially it was very tough on Ukraine and Zelensky's response upset the president, the vice president, a lot of Americans. And then Russia, president, I think, behind the scenes has been pretty straightforward with Russia. He's trying to figure out how to do a minerals deal, which I think would be in the best interest of both countries in so many respects. And he's threatened Russia with massive sanctions if they can't figure out how to come to the table and so forth. What do you make of all this?
Look, first of all, I think that we are watching dialogue happen, and that is something we haven't seen in 3 years. And, you know, we have to expect this will take some time. President Trump used what he had to bring Ukraine to the table, and Ukraine has agreed to an unconditional ceasefire. And now President Trump, Steve Witkoff, they are working with the Russians to bring them to the table as well. Now, look, the Russians think that they are doing better in this conflict, and they're playing harder to get, and they're not moving as quickly as the Ukrainians. But not only has President Trump threatened sanctions, we've also seen him in the last couple of days tell President Zelensky that he would look for Patriot missiles to defend Ukraine in Europe. We have seen that he didn't reimpose the Biden administration's policy of allowing Russia to use the U.S. payment system to sell its oil. That's going to have a big hit on Russia. So we are starting to see some action from President Trump. And I think the longer President Putin doesn't meet in the middle, then I think President Trump will have to push harder and harder. And that's what President Trump does. It's transactional. And, you know, we're talking about a ceasefire right now. The big question is what a full-time peace deal will look like. But we're moving in a direction that we weren't moving in before. And I speak to people in Ukraine, and they want peace. And, you know, you start negotiations on two very different sides. And in the end, both sides have to come and meet somewhere in the middle. We're at the beginning of that process, but it has at least begun.
I'm personally excited about a potential minerals deal. I mean, I think it would be beneficial in a huge way for the United States, but also for Ukraine. You would have American businesses there, American capital and R&D, American personnel. You you would have a tremendous amount of activity going on there, America involved. And as the president said, you pretty much have a security umbrella of some kind. He called it organic. Yep. Because we're there. When we come back, I'd like your thoughts on that, too, my friend. We're talking to Benjamin Hall and his fantastic new book. We want to thank you for being here with us. And the book is called, hold on, Resolute. I'll get into it in detail. The music's catching up with me. We'll be right back. Talking to Benjamin Hall. His great new book is Resolute, How We Humans Keep Finding Ways to Beat the Toughest Odds. Benjamin Hall, did you think you had this in you, that you could recover mentally, physically, that you could keep your life together, even though it's been very, very difficult, keep your family together? Have you been able to achieve things that you didn't think you would?
Yeah, it was always interesting because I've covered conflict for over 15 years, and I've seen people injured the way I was injured, and I've seen people lose their lives, and I always ask myself, what would it be like if it happened to me? How would I respond? Would I have the resilience? And you would never find out until it does happen to you. And then it did happen to me, and I have been immensely proud of how I handled this and how I managed to get through it. And what I have learned is that I think everyone does have that level of resilience inside them, but many people don't realize it. But when your back is up to the wall, when you have no other choice, you do find it, and it is inside everyone. And it was a learning curve, but I learned quite quickly. Even on my evacuation from Ukraine, it was this 10-hour brutal train ride with no pain meds, and I was barely alive. I learned even that early on that when the pain got too bad, that I was able to stop, focus, really concentrate, and try to bring that pain down. And it reminded me just how much the mind can control how you are feeling. And once I started to learn these lessons, I was able to use them time and time again. I knew I could recover. I knew I was going to be fine at some point. But again, it was the impact it would have on my family, my young children. And that, I think, is something I will always be working at. My eldest daughter is almost 10 years old at the moment. And I thought that, this was not going to be such a big issue for them. But just as because they were young when they found out. But already I'm starting to see if she gets older, moves into, 10, 11, she's starting to talk more and more about it. So I'm aware that this is something that will be with us forever. We will constantly be finding ways to change it. But I write in the book that adapting is one of the most important things you can do. When walls come up, you adapt. You find a way around them. You address them. You don't just be so hot-headed that you do it one way. You learn to get round and find new ways of doing things. And that was a great lesson that I learned.
Although it's hard to imagine, do you ever say to yourself, look at what some of these other people are going through. I can do this too.
Absolutely. I mean, I was very lucky that I was treated at the Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas, at one of these great facilities that treated so many of the soldiers injured in Afghanistan and Iraq. But what it meant was that at the end of my hospital bed, every day there was another veteran, someone else standing there saying, look at us. We've done it. You can do it. And that really helps you. And again, that's one of the reasons I wanted to write the book. Many people gave that to me, and I hope the book now passes that on to other people, because seeing other people go through tough things really makes you stand up and say, if they can do it, I can do it too.
Benjamin Hall, the book is Resolute, How We Humans Keep Finding Ways to Beat the Toughest Odds. And you're really trying to pass along to as many people as you can, not just your experiences, but advice on what to do when your back is against the wall and so forth and so on. And this book is superb. This book does exactly that. You can get it at Amazon.com, any major bookstore. I hear you're going back to London. Let me ask you about that. Not that that's in the book. London has changed a lot, hasn't it? England's changed a lot. I mean, we used to go there maybe 25, 30 years ago. You could walk in London. You could cross the Thames on the bridge there. He could do it at 3 a.m. There was nothing to worry about. Now I hear it's not exactly that way. Is that right?
In a big way. I have 4 children, 4 daughters at home, and it is a concern to us when they are out and about in the streets. The knife crime is rising. To be honest, the country and the city doesn't look like it used to when I was younger and when I was originally living there. It is changing. And look, there are a number of issues and reasons for that. Look, immigration has changed the way Europe looks. I mean, multiculturalism opened its arms, but It never encouraged people to embrace the culture or learn the language or adopt the faith. And, there are parts of London that feel totally foreign. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with having people from all over the world there. But if they don't...
They need to assimilate.
You have to assimilate. And so you are seeing divisions growing. And look, frankly, I'm a proud American. My father was American. I grew up between the two countries. And I still talk to my wife quite often saying, what do you think? Maybe I think we may be moving. Not only because of the way that the city looks and because of security, but, I've been traveling around America over the last year doing this series for Fox Nation, looking at communities that have been hit hard but rebuild themselves. And there is a community spirit in America. There is this immense sort of quality, a go-get-em quality, meritocracy, where you are rewarded for the good you do and for the hard work you put in, that I don't see the same of in the UK. And so, it's going to be a big question for me and my family as we look at the years ahead.
There really is something to be said, I guess, being an American, about the Yankee. There really is something to be said about the American spirit. And I just hope our spirit isn't blown out for the same reasons you're having issues in England. We have them in the United States and other reasons, too. Because that American spirit is so important. That's what distinguishes us from everybody else. Anyway, I was curious about that. So, folks, get the book. It's a great book, Resolute, How We Humans Keep Finding Ways to Beat the Toughest Odds by Benjamin Hall. You're just a fantastic young man. I've never met you. Hopefully one day I will. And I appreciate all you're doing. God bless you, my friend.
And to you too, sir. Thank you very much.
Be well. Be well. What a remarkable young man, Mr. Producer. It's just incredible. The book is Resolute. That's Benjamin Hall. You can get it at Amazon. We've linked to it, I think, by now, right, Rich? And on our site there. We're going to take some calls, as we now are wont to do, which is great. Lynn, Las Vegas, Nevada, XM Satellite. Lynn, how are you?
I'm good, Mark. How are you doing?
Let me look. I'm doing great, thank you.
Well, I just want to say
how you be? How you be? How you be, Lynn?
I am good. Heading to the dog park. But
oh, cool.
I just want to say I like your mother. I use the same tricks. I actually am a technical writer and editor. So
wow.
Language is a big thing with me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I will tell you one of the things that I really do that really irks me is when people try to use fancy language, fancy words to try to make themselves sound important or sound educated. And yes, you can be educated, okay? You have a engineering degree but you don't have to use fancy language. In fact, when you do that, it typically shows that either you don't know what you're saying, you don't know what you're talking about, or you're just trying to talk above other people. So,
all right, my friend. Well, what kind of dog do you have?
I have two little Chihuahua monsters.
We grew up with Chihuahuas. I remember my grandfather came in with a Chihuahua in his pocket. He's the one who fought at Iwo Jima. And then at his home, he had several German Shepherds and several Chihuahuas. They seem to get along, but of course, that's a little nerve-wracking, isn't it? They get hungry, there's a Chihuahua over there.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, and they get so excited. They're excited to go to the park. Yeah.
All right, my friend. You take care of yourself. You sound like a great lady. Bill, Albany, New York, the great WDGJ. Go, Bill.
Okay. Hello, Mark. How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Now, history has a way of repeating itself. And apparently...
So I hear.
John Roberts forgot that he changed our health care system. Not only that, But he forgot that.
Who is he? I didn't hear that. Who?
John Roberts.
John Roberts. Yeah. You know, that's a great point. What he did on Obamacare was disgusting.
Yes, that's true. But see, he forgot what Obama did. See, before Obama was elected president, he was being interviewed by George Stephanopoulos. And George Stephanopoulos asked him, what do you have to thank for your great success? And Obama said, his Islamic faith. Now, George Stephanopoulos... I don't
remember him saying that. Do you remember him saying that, Rich? Never. He never said that. Thank you for your call. He never said his Islamic faith. Let us continue. John was Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin, on the Mark Levin app. How are you?
Hey, Mark, I'm great. How are you?
Good. Thank you.
Hey, we have got to get rid of letting them use the word democracy to beat over our heads when it comes to our republic.
Well, first of all, we can't force them to get rid of it, but I think you make a good point. The word democracy, George Orwell talked about this, and he's not the only one. That the worst monsters use the word democracy to try to camouflage who they are and what they believe.
And when they took the Pledge of Allegiance out of the schools, the one and only place where and to the Republic was ever really referenced, that let them impose the word democracy on the culture. We've got to push back on that. The democracy in their protest chants, this is what democracy looks like. We're seeing it now. They're using democracy against Tesla. They're using democracy, these judges overreaching against the president. We are a republic where the rights of...
I know, but they're not using democracy against the president. They're using judicial tyranny or judicial oligarchy, if you will, against the president. But I'm well aware of the distinction. I've talked about it many, many times. It doesn't really annoy me because I know when people are saying democracy, our people, they mean republicanism. We try and make the distinguish. We're not a democracy or distinguish it. But if you read the ancients like I've been doing lately, it's all they ever talk about. Democracy, 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 and many of them weren't democracies. I think your point is we use the word democracy to really conceal what is tyranny. And if you look at the Constitution, it's not a democracy, it's a republic. I got it. We all got it. Anyone who's listened to this show's got it. Don't you think, Mr. Producer? All right, thank you. Now, what did you ask me to do? Yes, sir. Be right back.
Mark Levin.
See if we can slip another call in here. We have a full board. I want to thank you all. Let's continue. Linda, Ocala, Florida, the great WSKY. We love our affiliate there. Linda, go right ahead, please.
Good evening, Mark.
Yes, you too.
I want to talk about these rogue judges.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have declared war on the executive branch and are trying to overthrow the presidency, and they should all be arrested.
Well, they're not going to be arrested. But I do agree with you that they're trying to usurp his powers. And Schumer's the one who said it. We put a bunch of progressives on the court to stop Trump. And what the Supreme Court needs to do is stop them. It's the Chief Justice of the United States. That's the phrase in the Constitution. Not the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He has an obligation to fix this. He already took a pass. And he's got to stand up like a man and deal with it. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, men and women in Ukraine. That's right, I said it. The men and women in Israel. That's right, I said it. And we, the American people, God bless each and every one of you. And bless you. And see you tomorrow.